Hello, YouTube. I like to read posted articles of a bright Russian scientist, a graduate of the top military space academy. Now he's a leading engineer and programmer. He was involved with the ISS and Mir space station projects and other special programs of his country. Most likely, he also worked in the little known Russian Space Intelligence Agency. So Sergei is very bright. I think there is a reason he publishes information on the internet about outer space exploration, celestial mysteries, moon, Antarctica, for instance. Maybe it is a signal to his counterparts, pointing out certain things. Meaning this, we know this much or more, but this is all we will admit to. Or maybe Sergei is just having fun. Sergei has immense knowledge and a cool sense of humor. You can admire and more of my videos about him once you find out the subjects he gets involved with. But first, let me remind you before I get into today's subject. A ribonucleic acid, RNA, is a polymeric molecule essential in various biological roles in coding, decoding, regulation, and expression of genes. RNA and deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, are nucleic acids. Here are some of Sergei's observations about one of the strangest creatures in our oceans. Then we will look at some of my collected information. So, incredibly strange and possibly intelligent creatures live close by in the depths of the oceans of our Earth. Imagine that you have 8 sensitive, semi-independent limbs and that you don't have a skeleton. Imagine that you can change the shape of your body by controlling this process by redistributing internal fluids. Imagine that all of your fleeting thoughts, including subconscious ones, take on colored shapes on your skin. You are an octopus. In fact, all the above is quite difficult to perceive and model because octopuses, I'll refer to them as that, not octopi, so forgive me, and other cephalopods are very different from humans. Nevertheless, these animals occupy quite high places in the ranking of most intelligence representatives of the animal world. It is known that octopuses are very well trained and they know how to use tools. Here's another interesting fact. Our 8-legged friends are masters of RNA editing. The basic dogma of molecular biology looks like this: DNA, RNA, protein. But if you have the ability to change RNA, it opens up an absolutely fantastic set of possibilities for you. And octopuses can do it. More than 60% of their transcripts, something like an assembly drawing of RNA related to the nervous system, quite calmly if necessary, are transformed so as to adapt to the conditions of the changed environment. For comparison, no more than 1% of RNA transcripts can change in humans under such conditions. Just imagine what opportunities for adaptation are embedded in the genes of those amazing animals. Despite the fact that octopuses are representative of the so-called Einstein group of animals, their brains are different from the brains of other members of this group. In addition to octopuses, it includes primates, ravens, and cetaceans. The brain of an octopus is more distributed throughout its body, and about 2/3 of its neurons are in the tentacles. In addition, unlike humans, octopuses do not have a somatotopic map, and that maps certain areas of the body to certain parts of the brain. Instead, stimulation and control of various parts of the body are distributed over vast areas of the nervous system of these animals. And this is not all oddities of the octopus's brain. Science has a good idea of the shape and structure of the octopus's brain, but exactly what types of cells it contains, it's still a mystery. How different cell types affect animals' thinking and learning abilities also raise many questions. But a recent study may provide a new approach to creating a detailed map of the octopus's brain. Researchers have compiled a detailed map of the octopus's brain with information about what types of cells it has and where they are located. Sequencing the RNA of a single cell, in which each cell is examined separately to see which genes are active, helped scientists compile this very interesting document. It turned out that the brain of octopuses consists of many different types of cells. The scientists used the difference in the size of the nuclei and the anatomical arrangement of the cells, and they found out that 116 different cellular phenotypes can be distinguished in the brain of an octopus. This means that there are at least 116 different types of cells in the brain of an adult octopus. It's just an amazing variety. Many of the cell types were relatively rare. And in the cells of the vertical lobe of the brain, scientists found just an oversaturation of genes related to learning and memory. Most likely, a larger number of cells of certain types in the brain of an octopus is not for nothing. Perhaps this is a kind of reserve that can increase the computing power of the brain at the right time. What, in fact, can explain the high level of cognitive abilities of octopuses? And this is only a working hypothesis, That's what Sergei shared, and it leads me to believe that the Russians are conducting some kind of secret octopus research for their military and space exploration projects. And why not? I'm sure the Americans and the Chinese are doing the same, because we don't know what we're going to meet in the ocean containing planets, and I've had a number of videos about those, even in our solar system, smaller celestial bodies, but containing very interesting oceans. And we really don't know what octopuses are. Now, let me present you some information from my files. Something unusual is happening in the oceans. As coral reefs are depleted and fishing collapses, more and more octopuses are born. Cephalopods, squid, octopus, cuttlefish multiply rapidly, and scientists don't know why. An analysis published in the journal Current Biology shows that since the 1950s, the number of many species in the world's oceans has increased. One of the reasons why conditions have improved for them is that people are exterminating the main competitors of the cephalopods, the predatory fish. Other large-scale changes, such as global warming, could also play a role. Scientists think that that's the only factor, but something is changing on a large scale, and this gives an advantage to cephalopods. Very interesting. Researchers have found a new map of the octopus genetic code that is so strange that it could actually be an alien being. And that's what I mean by what we might encounter on those planets. The first whole cephalopod genome sequence shows a striking level of complexity with 33,000 protein-coding genes identified. Not only that, the octopus's DNA is highly rearranged, like cards shuffled and reshuffled in a pack, containing numerous so-called jumping genes that can leap around the genome. The octopus appears to be utterly different from all other animals, even other mollusks. With its 8 prehensile arms, so to say, its large brain, and its clever problem-solving abilities. The scientists sequenced the genome of the California two-spot octopus in a study published in the journal Nature. They discovered unique genetic traits that are likely to have played a key role in the evolution of characteristics such as the complex nervous system and adaptive camouflage. Analysis of 12 different tissues revealed hundreds of octopus-specific genes found in no other animal, many of them highly active in structures such as the brain, skin, and suckers. The scientists estimate that the two-spot octopus genome contains 2.7 billion base pairs, the chemical units of DNA, with long stretches of repeated sequences. And although the genome is slightly smaller than humans, it is packed with more genes. Who knows, maybe further study of cephalopods will reveal new secrets to us. Until then, people have enough joy just from the neighborhood with such unusual creatures. Well, a cephalopod it's a cephalopod creature. No one will argue here. The head, eyes, legs, and there is nothing else, yeah? There is no spine and skeleton for sure. There have been doubts about the eight-legged and eight-armed nature recently. Some of the scientists now believe that there are actually 6 arms, and the remaining 2 tentacles are just the legs. But there are 3 hearts. 2 pump blood through the gills, 1 on each side, and the third already serves the whole body. But the main thing is that among invertebrates, octopuses are distinguished by a rare intelligence and understanding. Biologists still cannot agree on the degree of octopus's intelligence. However, they agree on one thing: they have both short-term and long-term memory, are able to learn from examples, so in principle only their relatively short life, from several months to several years, limits their ability to acquire knowledge. Otherwise, we would have faced definitely much more intelligent creatures in the depths of our oceans for centuries, but we have not. Not with them. Scientists at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology have solved the mystery of how an octopus manages to control 8 limbs, which, as previously thought, are able to act autonomously and have their own brains. It turned out that the animal's brain receives information from tentacles and is able to control them to solve certain tasks. The researcher's article was published in the journal Current Biology, and the scientific work is briefly described in a press release on phys.org site. The unusual nervous system of octopuses consists of 500 million neurons, 2/3 of which are contained not in the brain, but in the body and limbs. According to research, the tentacles use many reflex loops that allow them to act independently of the brain, which is especially noticeable when the limb, for some reason, breaks away from the body and no longer receives signals from the central nervous system. Because of these properties, the octopus is sometimes called a creature with 9 brains. However, in the new work, the experimental results show that the tentacles are not completely independent of the brain, and it is more correct to consider the octopus as an organism with 1 brain and intelligent limbs. So, octopus that pushes a tentacle into a Y-shaped maze with 2 branches, left and right, is able to understand which brain the food is in, even if it does not see either the food or the tentacle itself. At the same time, the animal is capable of learning. That is, next time it is more likely to stick a limb into the place where there was food before. Thus, information is exchanged between the peripheral and central nervous systems. The octopuses did not probe the inner surface of the maze, but quickly stretched limbs into one of the branches. This means that the tentacle is able to transmit proprioceptive information to the brain. That is, it gives the brain an understanding of where the limb is located and how it moves. However, in another experiment, where one of the pipes was rough and the other smooth, the internal texture depended on where the food was. Octopuses resorted to slowly feeling the wall of the maze, after which they correctly guessed the location of the reward. This suggests that the limbs also transmit tactile information. Moreover, after training, octopuses could equally successfully use other limbs that did not participate in training. This further eliminates the idea that each tentacle acts independently of all others. Learning takes place in the brain, after which information becomes available to all limbs. However, it remains unknown exactly where this information is stored in the brain. Molecular biologists have found out that the tentacles of octopuses have taste buds unique to marine animals. They can recognize molecules of various substances that are very poorly soluble in water. Octopuses are considered one of the most highly developed invertebrates. Over the past half century, biologists have found out that these cephalopods can see not only with their eyes, but also with the whole skin as a whole, and each of their tentacles has its own autonomous nervous system and a set of sensory organs. The researchers suggest that the ability to recognize insoluble substances can help octopuses not only distinguish between the tastes of inanimate objects and prey, but also avoid contact with poisonous inhabitants of the seas or toxic objects. That's very interesting because we put so many toxic objects at the bottom of the oceans that now the animals have to help themselves. This is supported in particular by the fact that the receptors of octopus bimaculoid tentacles actively react to terpenoid molecules, volatile substances insoluble in water, which covers the skin of many poisonous polyps, mollusks, and other inedible inhabitants of the seabed. When scientists covered part of the bottom of the aquarium with them, octopuses always avoided contact with such areas. That is, the taste of the terpenoids scared them away. Scientists hope that further study of the structure of these receptacles and the search for their analogs in the organisms of both inhabitants of the seas and land animals will help to learn the history of the appearance of these nerve cells and understand what role they can play in the life of octopuses, in addition to protection from potentially poisonous prey. Other features were found in the genome of cephalopods. So they have found the ability to quickly modify proteins to change their functions. This is believed to help octopuses adjust nerve chains to perform different tasks and ensures the plasticity of the mind. Several hundred more special genes serve the suckers of the tentacles. Finally, 6 genes encoding the reflecting proteins are active in the skin and help octopuses change the color and texture of the integumentary tissues, providing outstanding camouflage. In general, we can say that the main genetic acquisitions went to octopuses to improve the nervous system. It is therefore worth being surprised at the hunting strategy demonstrated by the great Pacific striped octopus. Creeping up behind the shrimp, it stretches out its tentacles and lightly hits the shrimp on the head. The frightened shrimp bounces back right into the octopus's arms. Such a clever tactic is described in his article by Roy Caldwell from the University of California at Berkeley and his colleagues. Moreover, it turned out that the large Pacific striped octopuses show sufficient tolerance to their own kind, sharing a meal with others. And as you know, such social tolerance and social communication skills in general are considered a sign of high development of the nervous system. Although genes have been read only in one species of octopuses, it can be assumed that in this sense, they are all arranged approximately the same. So zoologists should take a closer look at the 300 species that are known today. Perhaps each one of them demonstrate their inherent intelligence in its own way. But squid and cuttlefish may well have some differences in their genes, although they, along with octopuses, belong to cephalopods, lifestyle, body, and structure and skills. According to the study, the octopus genome has an incredible level of complexity. And American scientists from the University of Chicago have come to the conclusion that octopuses have alien DNA. After studying the DNA of cephalopods, scientists found out that octopus's genes consist of 33,000 protein-coding genes, which is many times greater than the number of similar genes in human body. Based on this data, scientists came to the conclusion that unlike other animals inhabiting the Earth, octopuses cannot be indigenous inhabitants of our planet. Exactly how the octopuses managed to get to Earth, scientists do not specify. And I urge you to recall the legends from many ancient people about objects coming to our planet and landing on water, giant eggs and so forth, in Chinese and other mythologies, and breaking apart. Well, there was a question once asked, are octopuses able to create underwater cities? Don't laugh, there is nothing funny in this statement. These distant relatives of snails are among the most mentally developed animals, according to neuroscientist George Chapoutier. To begin with, the octopus has the largest brain among the invertebrates, as we have established. However, the sharpness of the mind doesn't depend on the size of the head, but on the connections between nerve cells. In natural conditions, mollusks are cunning and dexterous enough to, say, penetrate the shell of a coconut that has fallen into the water, if there is not a single suitable rocky hollow nearby to hide. In the course of laboratory studies of cephalopods, it was proven that they easily learn new skills. It cost them nothing, for example, to unscrew the lid of a jar to get the food inside. Keep this example in your head, because I will get to something else later. Moreover, they remember the hole with a diameter of 8 centimeters. The octopus will spend no more than 2 minutes to overcome the same obstacle next time, since the entire sequence of movements necessary for this is forever imprinted in its memory. Another, even more striking fact, a group of Italian researchers came to the conclusion that octopuses can learn by simply observing their relatives. Cephalopods lead a hermit lifestyle, which, according to many scientists, is the main obstacle on their way to world leadership. Today, female octopuses die soon after laying eggs, but if we assume that the situation may change in the future and they will pass on their life experience to young octopuses, then the population of cephalopods will undoubtedly make a huge leap in evolution. Just think what is being done in those secret laboratories, and what mistakes can be made along the way, at what we create, what creatures we can create. This is not the first time. Cohabitation can contribute to an increase in their life expectancy and give them additional time to develop skills and knowledge. And then why not really start building underwater cities? Well, I suspect the potential research of the octopuses would do quite a lot, and may be done to enhance their ability to store memories. After all, octopuses could be used as new weapons, the biological ones, because I don't know for any other purposes such experiments would be done in secret, if they're done. Let's look at the examples of the octopus's acuity. At the beginning of the last century, according to Paul Barsht in his excellent article about squid and octopus, a ship with precious cargo crashed off the coast of Japan. It was carrying Korean porcelain to the Mikado Palace, and it went down. It sunk. The captain and the officers performed the usual samurai ritual in such cases. They performed harakiri when the ship was filled with water. The porcelain has been lying on the bottom of the sea for 100 years. Then, the place of the ship's demise, surrounded by legends, was well known, but even the best professional divers, could not get to it. It was too deep there. One of the fishermen came up with an excellent idea. Why not turn to octopuses for help? So this man apparently knew the habits of octopuses quite well. They caught octopuses, tied them to long ropes, and lowered them to the bottom of the sea in the place where the half-rotted skeleton of a ship sunk with the porcelain lay on the bottom. They waited until the animals in the pile of ship wreckage found suitable shelters for themselves inside porcelain bowls and vessels, to which, as we already know, octopuses have a special predilection. Now it seems it was time to act. They gently pulled the ropes. Octopuses are stubborn. They will never part with their favorite home. They are ready to leave even their homeland, but they will keep the house. Not always, of course, was this the case with the eight-armed diver through. It was the case when an eight-armed diver brought a precious ball from the bottom of the sea. Sometimes when they pulled up octopuses, a stone instead of a porcelain was brought up. But generally, things went well. So that's how they were able to bring up these precious contents lost in the sea. Greek fishermen are also cunning in making up stories. So, but listen to what diving technology they invented to extract coal for their hearths, so to say. During the First World War, many military and transport vessels were based off the coast of Crete. So much so that mountains of coal grew on the bottom of the sea, which was dropped overboard by ships, bunkering ships. Cretan fishermen decided to get this coal, but they were so poor that even with the funds of the whole community, they couldn't buy a dredge. Then they remembered about octopuses. They caught more of them, tied them to ropes, and began to lower them to the bottom, having previously established the location of the coal deposits. As soon as the octopus touched the bottom, it was immediately pulled up. Not wanting to hang on the rope again, the animal desperately grabbed the first stone, which in its certain position served it as a weighty support. So apparently the octopus feels at ease only when its hands, tentacles, are occupied with some weighty object. The concentration of contradictions between mythical and real octopuses was most clearly reflected in the tiny fin mollusks, discovered only at the beginning of the 20th century. The animal lives at great depths inaccessible to other cephalopods, and for protection uses glowing slime instead of the usual ink. Actually, this is where its singularity comes to an end. Only the name that people awarded it is noteworthy: infernal vampire. No, seriously, it's the official name, the infernal vampire, Varmiteotis infernalis, the ideal name for a creature that is not even a predator. The usual diet of an octopus is marine biotrash, sticking to the tentacles during swimming. The infernal vampire is not poisonous and is absolutely safe for humans and for anyone in principle considering how deeply it lives. Perhaps miniature mollusks have the gift of telepathy and inspired biologists with such a terrible name to be more afraid of them. Cephalopods in general and octopuses in particular are known for their high level of development, which becomes more noticeable when comparing them with their closest relatives, snails, and so forth. It is enough to recall the outstanding ability of cephalopods to disguise their eyes similar in structure to human ones and how they manage with 8 tentacles. To move so many limbs in concert, you need to have a fairly developed nervous system. And we discussed it, and how many brains the octopus actually have. But octopus are able to solve experimental cognitive tasks. They find and remember the way out of quite complex mazes, and understand what you need to open. And they understand that you need to open a jar of food to get delicious crab, which again indicates a fairly high level of intelligence development. They can even cooperate with other predators when they need to be united in order to get prey. It's a fascinating subject, and one day I'll get into this, but they do coordinate their operations with other animals. Octopuses have keen eyesight and tasteful touch, but hearing is a problem. They hear practically nothing. In terms of intelligence, of course, octopuses can safely be called the kings of shellfish. By the way, their blood is the right color, blue, but it has nothing to do with the mind, only with the presence of the copper instead of iron in the blood cells. The brain of an octopus is unimaginably developed for an animal of that size. So it consists of 14 lobes covered with rudimentary core and is well protected by a cartilaginous skull. Octopuses are the only invertebrates whose mind is on the level of dogs and some monkeys. They have excellent memory and develop thinking. They solve simple problems related to geometric shapes, are amenable to training, and allow themselves to be tamed. In the wild, octopuses behave extremely sensibly. Their home, for example, is always kept clean, sweeping with a jet of water and putting garbage in a neat pile outside. Moreover, they are one of the very few animals that are able to show ingenuity in sex. True, reproduction does not bring anything good for adults. Nature actually has a mechanism of self-destruction in them, triggered after mating. The female guards the clutch of eggs, spending several months without food and dies of exhaustion. And the male begins to age rapidly and also dies soon. And the care of offsprings, dad, having done his job, usually dies in a couple of months. Mom lays eggs in some cave or other secluded place, and all the time while the offspring ripens, carefully and constantly drives fresh water on them so that the maturing children have plenty of oxygen. It doesn't leave eggs, generally. It doesn't hunt and therefore does not feed. Sometimes, out of desperation, it begins to partially digest one of its own tentacles. And when the kids hatch, the caring mother is, as a rule, so weak that it simply cannot hide from hungry predators, like the cod, for example, and quickly dies. It is not known what the octopuses would have done if their life would have stretched for a long time. So, again, this is something that I hope we don't find out through our experimentations. We will see. Maybe, after all, at least one of the representatives of the finless mollusk managed to be noted as a famous predictor. And I'm talking about Paul the octopus, the eight-legged oracle who lived in Germany some years ago. In fact, octopuses do not grow more than 3 meters. Their maximum weight is 25 kilograms. No octopus, even the largest one, is capable of dragging a person to the bottom. Moreover, it will never try to do this. After all, the usual tactic of cephalopods when faced with a larger threat is to escape. A bloodthirsty octopus is an image as realistic as, say, a man eating hair. On top of that, octopuses can play. And this is one of the signs of highly developed intelligence. Researchers have noticed how octopuses let plastic bottles or toys into the stream of artificially created currents in their aquariums and then catch them. Octopuses can also use wisely what others will think is garbage. After receiving fragments of coconut shells, octopuses build a shelter from them. A danger for us is not large individuals, but on the contrary, the smallest ones. A venomous bite of the blue ring octopus living off the western shores of the Pacific Ocean is capable of sending an adult healthy man to the hospital. It's a paradox, but legends and myths were silent about this. But it would be worth saying. Fortunately, deaths from even the most venomous individuals are negligibly rare. But caution when encountering them still doesn't hurt to be cautious. Before the invention of the scuba diving in the middle of the 19th century, people did not have any reliable ways to study the behavior of cephalopods. And we're speaking about modern civilizations, because I have my doubts about ancient Minoan kingdoms and what they knew. But that's subject for another video. But our ancestors had plenty of information and did not hesitate to use it. Octopuses in ancient times were not loved by anyone. They were considered evil, insidious, powerful, and unambiguously hostile to man creatures. That's a general statement, but some scientists make it. In the stories that sailors poisoned huge octopuses, kraken, sank ships, wrapping their tentacles around them, and suckers were used to suck blood from the living people. The notoriety about octopuses was spread even by famous writers like Victor Hugo in The Workers of the Sea or Jules Verne in the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Well, Howard Lovecraft awarded one of his most famous monster, Chulhu, the head of an octopus, and many newspaper headlines of the 18th, 19th centuries in which octopuses are mentioned are ready-made scenarios for a horror movie. It's worth saying that none of these stories are true, at least to some researchers. But here's what I read personally years ago, but unfortunately I do not have the source today. Some of the documents are not in my possession anymore. I lost them in earthquakes and other situations. During experiments conducted by Soviet marine biologists, this is what happened. They left an octopus that was being tested, a test octopus, in a tank in the control room. There was another tank in the same room containing small fish. The tanks had covers. They were not screwed in, but there were covers. When scientists returned the next morning, scientists discovered the test octopus in the tank that contained small fish before. So, not in the tank where it was left. It was about 5 meters away from the one that the octopus was left in. The test octopus was able to remove the cover of the first tank and somehow got into the other tank. The fish, of course, was gone in the morning. So this is what I wanted to let you know, and I will definitely bring you more interesting videos about animals of this planet that are unusual. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you will find in the description to this one. Please like my videos and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.